When I was hemorrhaging during a difficult childbirth, the doctor asked Ethan whether to save the mother or the baby. Ethan calmly uttered 2 words, "Save the baby." His icy voice echoed in my ears, "This is what you owe Vivian." In the end, both the baby and I died on the operating table. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the day Vivian was scheduled for her abortion. I immediately called Ethan. "Vivian's planning to terminate the pregnancy. Get to the hospital now." This second chance meant we owed each other nothing. I'd let them have their happily ever after. "Here's $1 million. Get rid of the baby and stop clinging to my son." The familiar voice confirmed it. I'd truly been reborn. In the cafe, Mrs. Harper sat beside me in her designer suit. Across from us, a woman in a plain white dress cradled her barely visible baby bump, trembling hands clutching her coffee cup. This was Vivian, Ethan's first love. In my previous life, after being abandoned by her scumbag ex, Vivian had begged Ethan to marry her and legitimize her unborn child. After one sleepless night, Ethan broke off our engagement to wed her. Though we hadn't officially registered our marriage yet, the wedding announcements had already gone out. Calling it off would have humiliated my family in our social circles. That's why Mrs. Harper had promised, "Don't worry. Your wedding will proceed as planned." The $1 million had bought Vivian's abortion and destroyed her chance to legally become Mrs. Harper. But I'd never forget the bloodshot rage in Ethan's eyes when he learned about the terminated pregnancy. He'd choked me against the wall, snarling, "You'll pay with your life someday." The searing pain of his "save the baby" command as I bled out still haunted me, even in this new life. "Izzy, time to go home." Mrs. Harper's gentle pat on my hand brought me back. "It's settled. That gold digger took the money and is heading to the clinic now. No one will come between you and Ethan." As we left, I watched Vivian struggle into a taxi with her pregnancy bump. Making excuses to Mrs. Harper, I hailed another cab straight to the hospital. This time, I'd ensure Vivian kept her baby. We'd be square. En route, I called Ethan again. "Vivian's terminating the pregnancy." Hospital. Now. At the clinic. Vivian kept glancing at the entrance while inching toward the procedure room. From my hidden corner, I remembered how she'd texted Ethan last time. Unaware Mrs. Harper had blocked her number. By the time he'd heard through friends, it was too late. Vivian's tearful claims that someone had forced the abortion, combined with the blocked calls, made Ethan blame me for everything. This time, my proactive call brought Ethan rushing in just as Vivian reached the operating room door. She collapsed against him, sobbing dramatically, "Someone paid me to kill our baby and stay away from you." Though Vivian wept prettily in his arms, Ethan stood frozen. He couldn't accuse me now. I'd been the one to warn him. When Ethan remained silent, Vivian snapped, "It was Ivy. She gave me $1 million to abort our child and stop our marriage. We were only getting fake married to protect the baby. How could she murder an innocent life?" Ethan Harper lowered his gaze without speaking, simply tightening his embrace. I took a deep breath and turned to leave. Vivian Parker's baby had been safely delivered. And now Ethan could finally marry her as he'd always wanted. Despite his parents' objections, Ethan remained determined to wed Vivian. I heard he'd been forced to kneel for 24 hours straight, even enduring a brutal beating from Mr. Harper. Yet nothing could shake his resolve. The Harpers came to our home to apologize. "We failed in raising our son properly," Mrs. Harper said, her voice trembling. "You deserved better, Izzy." My mother squeezed Mrs. Harper's hand. "We can't force matters of the heart. Perhaps our children simply weren't meant to be." The engagement between Ethan and me had been arranged by our grandfathers decades earlier. Old Mr. Harper's critical condition had rushed our wedding plans. After the Harpers left, Mom comforted me. "Our Ivy's extraordinary. You'll find someone who truly cherishes you." Her words echoed memories from my previous life. Back then, Ethan and I had already married. When old Mr. Harper passed months later, my marriage crumbled under Ethan's icy indifference after Vivian's miscarriage. The relentless emotional neglect drove me to severe depression. discovering my antidepressant prescription. Mom had wept. Get divorced. Sweetheart. No marriage is worth this pain. Our Ivy deserves real love. I'd nearly filed papers when Ethan suddenly transformed, showering me with affection as if our frosty past never existed. That honeyed deception made me forget Vivian. Until the poison within that sweetness nearly destroyed me. At the bridal boutique, the sales associate notified me about my gown's arrival. I swallowed the words. I don't need it anymore. In that past life, Ethan blamed me for Vivian's miscarriage, leaving us estranged until our courthouse wedding fulfilled old Mr. Harper's dying wish. This time, I wanted that dress not for any man, but for myself. Vivian's familiar voice stopped me at the entrance. Ethan. This gown's exquisite. I must try it. There she stood, pointing at the lace-adorned mannequin wearing my custom design. My lips twisted wryly. Some things never changed. Vivian still coveted everything of mine. Please let my wife try this, Ethan requested. Before the clerk responded, I stepped forward. That's bespoke tailoring. I doubt it would accommodate. My gaze deliberately dropped to Vivian's prominent baby bump. Both froze at my appearance. Within seconds, Vivian's eyes welled up. Ivy. Please don't misunderstand. I never meant to take anything from you. I never had a wedding dress. Her tearful whisper continued. We won't even have a ceremony. I promise. In that other lifetime, Vivian never wore white either. After losing the baby, she'd vanished from the city only to marry an alcoholic. Rumor said he beat her to death within years. Her wishes were none of my concern, as long as she didn't steal my wedding dress. I asked the store clerk to take it down for me to try on. Suddenly, a bony hand clamped around my wrist. Ethan looked at me with stormy eyes. Why are you trying on wedding dresses when you're not getting married? His scrutinizing gaze made me want to laugh. I shook off his grip. Who says I'm not? Ethan's face darkened as he dragged me out of the bridal shop. Let go of me. Ethan. He held on with bruising force. My wrist already blooming red. Outside. His fingers remained locked around my arm, leaving angry marks. Ivy. Stop making a scene, he said through gritted teeth. How many times must I say it? Once Vivian gives birth and we register the baby, I'll divorce her. Then we can marry. Can't you wait a few months? First you pressured her to abort. Now this dress nonsense. His disappointed glare pierced me. I never realized how possessive you could be. The familiar ache flared in my chest. Across lifetimes, Ethan only saw me as the jealous villain. He'd never loved me, only resented me. Yet I remembered the boy who shielded me from bullies, whispering, "Don't be scared, Izzy. I'll always protect you." That Ethan was gone forever. Seeing my silence, his tone softened. Let Vivian have this dress. We'll have it altered. For our wedding, I'll commission something grander. I stared at his deceitful face, nausea rising. Keep it. Why should I surrender what's mine? My laugh sounded hollow. There won't be a wedding. Brushing past him, I returned inside only to freeze. Vivian had torn my gown from the mannequin despite staff protests. The pristine fabric now hung in tattered halves. My phone buzzed with Ethan's transfer notification. She didn't mean it. Keep the $2 million, we'll find you better dresses later. Rage surged as I fought the urge to scratch Vivian's eyes out. But noticing her rounded stomach, I clenched my fists until nails bit palms. This time, I wouldn't let her lose the child. I owed them nothing, but refused to become them. Exhaling shakily, I blocked Ethan's number and all socials, determined to sever ties. Fate mocked me. A week later, Vivian cornered me at the mall, clutching my sleeve with practiced tears. Izzy, I just loved it too much. Forgive me? Watching her crocodile tears fall, I finally snapped. Must you steal everything I value? That sentence successfully stopped Vivian's tears. She blinked her watery eyes, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Is that not allowed? Izzy? Why should you have a good family background and an outstanding fiancé while I have nothing? I have so little. Can't you share some of yours with me? I rolled my eyes in exasperation. She was Ethan's first love. Ethan had pursued her before. But she looked down on him, aiming higher for James, the young master of the elite circle. In the end, the young master wanted nothing to do with her. She ended up being toyed with and discarded by other playboys from that circle. Ethan is yours now. Please stop harassing me. Okay? I just wanted to get away from her. Even her touch disgusted me. Izzy, please leave the city. Please? My child can't grow up without a father. If you just leave, Ethan and I can be together properly. My eyes widened. What kind of outrageous nonsense was this? I'd already conceded so much. Yet she remained unsatisfied, demanding I abandon my home to fulfill her wishes. Not a chance. Whether you can keep Ethan after marriage depends entirely on you. I pushed her away gently and turned to leave. Ah! Vivian suddenly screamed, stumbling backward. Instinctively, I rushed to catch her waist from behind. But she kept staggering backward, her full weight collapsing onto me. We both tumbled to the ground. Even as we fell, I kept my grip on her waist, cushioning her fall with my own body. My back slammed against the floor, sharp pain shooting through my lower back. I hissed through clenched teeth. To my surprise, Vivian burst into loud sobs first. Izzy, I won't compete with you for Ethan anymore. Please don't hurt my baby. Ethan, save me. My head snapped up at those words, meeting Ethan's piercing glare. He carefully helped Vivian up, pulling her into his embrace, burying her face in his chest. She wailed hysterically. I was wrong. Ethan, let's call off the wedding. I know Izzy is angry with me, but take it out on me, the baby's innocent. Ethan stared down at me with frost in his eyes. When did you become so vicious? Ivy? Repeatedly trying to kill Vivi's child? That's a living being. Have you no fear of karma? His icy expression reminded me of our past life, that same frigid stare when he'd learned Vivian lost the baby. The phantom sensation of his hands around my throat resurfaced. I looked away, taking deep breaths to suppress the panic. My dismissal seemed to infuriate him further. He kicked my injured side, making me grimace in pain. Don't think playing dead will get you out of this. Get up and apologize now. A crowd had gathered, and some who'd witnessed everything spoke up in my defense. How could you treat a young woman like this? Sir, this is outrageous. She fell trying to save that woman. She never meant to harm her or the baby. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the onlookers. Ethan's gaze darted between Vivian and me, weighing who to believe. Ah. Vivian clutched her stomach dramatically. Ethan. The pain, it's terrible. Save our baby. I can't lose him. Ethan shot me a dark look. If anything happens to Vivi's child, don't expect me to marry you anymore. With that, he carried Vivian away urgently, watching his retreating figure. I scoffed. Good riddance. Kind strangers helped me up, but my injured back made me stagger, nearly collapsing again. At that moment, a pair of long, strong hands steadied me from behind. A lazy drawl came from above. In such a hurry to throw yourself into my arms? I looked up to see a dangerously handsome face, the man's eyes glinting with mischief and recklessness. His hands supporting my waist sent another wave of pain shooting through me. Gritting my teeth, I said, James, take me to the hospital. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed me with a lumbar spine injury requiring bed rest for a week. My mom rushed over immediately upon hearing the news. Seeing me lying flat on the hospital bed, she fretted anxiously. Ivy. What happened? Unable to turn, I could only glance sideways at her. It's nothing. Mom. Just took a bad fall. You've always been so careless. She scolded lightly before freezing when her eyes landed on the man in the room. Whether in my past life or this one, James had always carried himself with striking presence that commanded attention anywhere. He nodded politely at my mother. Mrs. Thompson. Her worried expression instantly melted into a radiant smile. Oh. She leaned closer to whisper in my ear. Is he your new boyfriend? My cheeks burned as I protested. Mom, don't be ridiculous. She gave me a knowing look. Well, I should get going. Lots to do. The door clicked shut behind her with exaggerated care. James chuckled, moving closer to my bedside. Your mom's adorable. Seeing the familiar curve of his brows and the warmth in his eyes, I felt tears well up. Our story had begun with another accident, him cramping during a swim. Me diving in to save him from drowning. That spontaneous act bound us together. Ethan had warned me to stay away from James, claiming he was trouble. Back then, I'd laughed at his jealousy, not realizing it wasn't me he cared about, but Vivian. The night before my wedding to Ethan in that previous life, James had stood outside my apartment with outstretched hand. You'll never be happy with him. Come with me. I'd walked away, choosing childhood familiarity over this reckless heart. That decision left me broken in every way that mattered. While James vanished overseas on my wedding day, tears streamed down my face unchecked. James wiped them away with uncharacteristic panic. Is the pain worse? Should I call the doctor? I pressed his palm against my damp cheek, shaking my head. James. My voice steadied as our eyes locked. Will you marry me? A week later, I insisted James skip picking me up from the hospital for his important board meeting. Fate's cruel humor had me sharing an elevator with Ethan and Vivian. He cradled her protectively as they stepped in, his arm around her waist with the tenderness I'd never known. During my own pregnancy in that other lifetime, I'd navigated every checkup alone, watching enviously as other expectant mothers leaned on their partners. Vivian shrank into Ethan's embrace when she saw me. Ivy. Please. I'll give him back to you. Just leave our baby alone. Her trembling voice contrasted with the triumphant gleam in her eyes. Ethan tightened his hold, glaring at me with venom. No one's touching my family. There I stood, condemned as the villain in their love story without uttering a word. Move aside. I didn't want to argue with them, pushing past to exit the elevator. Suddenly a large hand clamped around my wrist. Apologize. Ethan ground out through clenched teeth, his grip tightening until I thought my bones might crack. Tears pricked my eyes despite myself. In both past and present lives, he'd always chosen Vivian over me, leaving me shattered. I'd sworn not to cry, but the pain was too much, not just physical, but the heartache of realizing the boy who'd promised to protect me forever was truly gone. Tears fell traitorously as I hissed. I won't apologize to the homewrecker who stole my man. Vivian sniffled theatrically. I'm not a homewrecker. Ethan's face twisted with rage. Releasing my wrist, he raised his hand to strike me. A cold voice interrupted. What exactly are you doing to my fiancé? James stood behind Ethan, twisting his arm back with a sickening crack. Ethan's face drained of color, sweat beading on his forehead as he glared at James. Since when do you have a fiancé? Ethan spat. James pulled me against him, his eyes darkening at the red marks on my wrist. His thumb brushed the abused skin absently. Touch my future wife again, he said with deadly calm, and losing an arm will be the least of your worries. As we turned to leave, Ethan rasped with desperate malice, since when do you enjoy sloppy seconds? James? Everyone knows Ivy's been passed around more than Dash. The crunch of James' Oxford shoe connecting with Ethan's face cut off the insult. If you can't speak properly, James said coldly, grinding his heel against Ethan's bleeding mouth, we'll remove the problem permanently. Vivian finally snapped out of her daze, throwing herself at James' legs. Please. Hurt me instead. Her calculated sobs intensified, pregnant belly pressing against his calf. She gambled on his decency. Unaware James Carter answered to no one. I caught his arm as he moved to kick her off. Don't dirty your shoes. James paused, but Vivian clung tighter, the same pathetic desperation she'd shown chasing him years ago. Keep that child and your wedding plans, I said coldly, staring down at her trembling form. By letting go now. Trash belongs with trash. James sneered, steering me away as their whimpers echoed behind us. His arm tightened around my shoulders, anger radiating through the tense silence. I stole a glance at his stormy expression, biting my lip. I couldn't tell whether he was angry because Ethan and Vivian had bullied me, or because of Ethan's words. I tugged at his sleeve. James. There's nothing between me and Ethan. If you're bothered, his sharp glare silenced me mid-sentence. Honestly. His resentment made sense. Looking back, Ethan's distrust had festered even in our previous life. When I'd been pregnant, he'd shown no excitement, only cold indifference. Beyond Vivian's forced miscarriage, his suspicion that the child wasn't his had been the real poison. Though I'd cut ties with James after marriage, Ethan's paranoia ultimately destroyed me. James's dark eyes held mine until he finally sighed. Ivy. You proposed to me. Aren't you going to take responsibility? Before I could process this, he pulled me against his chest. Your past with Ethan means nothing. I just want to be in your future. Ivy. Promise you won't walk away this time. His steady heartbeat brought tears to my eyes. If I'd seen Ethan's true nature sooner in that other life. If I'd taken James's outstretched hand. But this second chance wouldn't be wasted. Clutching his hand tighter, I whispered, James, let's get married. My parents rejoiced at our engagement. Mom nearly paraded with a megaphone outside the Harper estate. My brilliant girl upgraded. That fool Ethan chose some floozy over you, serves him right. Rumors swirled about Ethan's mangled hand requiring multiple surgeries. The mall incident became whispered legend. Though no footage existed. Some claimed Ethan had crossed powerful figures for Vivian, others called her a curse. The Harper elders exploded in fury. Old Mr. Harper landing in ICU. Vivian's pregnancy scheme collapsed completely. At the courthouse with James. Deja vu struck. Last life's marriage license photo with Ethan showed two strangers forcing smiles. Not this time. We entered hand in hand, only to find Ethan waiting. His right arm hung in a sling. Beard scraggly. Clothes rumpled. Security blocked the disheveled figure resembling an asylum escapee. The reason was obvious as Vivian. Even disowned. He'd come to marry her. But all of this had nothing to do with me anymore. Ivy and James brushed past him without a second glance. Unexpectedly, Ethan grabbed my wrist. The cold touch coiled around my arm like a venomous snake, making me shout, "Let go of me." James narrowed his eyes, radiating lethal energy. Yet before he could act, Ethan suddenly collapsed to his knees. He looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "Ivy, please give me another chance. I remember everything now." The anesthesia had made Ethan forget the surgical pain. But in his drugged sleep, he'd relived their previous life. When Vivian Parker had appeared pregnant at his doorstep, his first instinct had been rejection. In their youth, they'd all been fascinated by novelty. Vivian's gritty determination as a scholarship student contrasted sharply with their silver spoon upbringing. There'd been a fleeting teenage infatuation, but it vanished when he recognized her gold-digging nature. He'd realized his heart had always belonged to Ivy Thompson, the girl he'd grown up with. Yet James, that golden boy with movie star looks and old money pedigree, became the thorn in his soul. Every woman orbited James, including both Vivian and Ivy. Watching Ivy laugh with James drove Ethan mad. How could their lifelong bond lose to some charmed newcomer? His revenge had been brutal. He'd accepted Vivian's plea, breaking off his engagement to marry her instead. Seeing Ivy's devastation brought twisted satisfaction. When Vivian miscarried and accused Ivy of forcing the abortion, Ethan felt nothing. The child wasn't his anyway. But Vivian's offhand remark, "It was James' baby. Ivy destroyed it because she's obsessed with him," ignited his fury. Never mind that everyone knew James wouldn't touch Vivian. The mere name James short-circuited Ethan's rationality. He married Ivy to eternally separate her from James, determined to make her suffer. Even during Ivy's traumatic labor, he'd snarled save the child out of spite. But when both mother and baby died on the operating table, drowning in grief made him realize his vengeance had destroyed them equally. After their marriage, James vanished. But the wound festered. Losing his true love brought bitter regret. If reborn, he'd keep his childhood promise to protect Ivy. Yet now, awakening to these memories too late. He found her preparing to marry James. Ivy. I was wrong. I never loved Vivian. Ethan pleaded. Tear tracks glistening. Marrying her was just to hurt you. You've always been the one. This jealousy, James, it made me insane. Please let me make amends. I drew a shuddering breath before my palm cracked across his face. Ethan. Someone like you doesn't deserve to speak of love. My voice trembled with suppressed rage. Love means acceptance, trust, and care, not cruelty. Using jealousy as an excuse to hurt others? You never loved me. You're obsessed with your own twisted reflection. I stepped back, my palms stinging from slapping him. I must have been blind in my past life. Choosing you over James. Instead of anger. Ethan wore that infuriating smirk. Leaning into my raised hand. Hit me again. Izzy. However many times you need. Let it all out. His manic energy chilled me to the bone. I retreated into James' protective embrace as he shoved Ethan away with a well-aimed kick. The fallen man laughed bitterly. Blood trickling from his split lip. You think Prince Charming here is any better? Last timeline. He slept with half of Europe after you rejected him. James tensed. But I silenced him with a touch. He respected my choices. While you, my gaze locked with Ethan's, were carving your initials into my soul. Yet when I took my final breath, it was James who held me, vowing to make things right. Recognition flashed in James' eyes as I continued. You asked me not to leave you behind this time. How long have you been back? Since the night you texted about changing dinner plans. He admitted softly. Our shared secret hanging between us. Ethan's hysterical laughter shattered the moment. Poetic justice. The universe loves its little jokes. His outburst drew stares from couples clutching marriage licenses. Their perfect days interrupted by our chaos. Security moved in as Vivian burst through the doors. Her baby bump straining against a designer dress. You promised me forever. Ethan. Her tear-streaked face contorted as she clutched his arm. Get your filthy hands off me. Ethan shook her loose with disgust. You ruined everything. His head snapped toward me with disturbing intensity. Let's get married right now. Ivy. I'll do better this time. I swear. Vivian's scream pierced the air as she collapsed. Crimson pooling around her legs. The scent of copper mixed with floral bouquets as chaos erupted. Paramedics pushed through the crowd while security restrained Ethan's raging outbursts. James shielded me from the nightmare. But our planned wedding date would have to wait. Later. At the hospital. We learned Vivian lost the child she'd weaponized for sympathy. They say she wanders the maternity ward now, clutching a soiled wedding veil. As for Ethan? His family's lawyers are keeping him in a luxury rehab center. But sometimes when my phone rings at 3 a.m., I still hear that broken laughter echoing through the static. Every day, Mrs. Harper would stop people on the street asking, "Where's my child? Give me back my child." Eventually, she was forcibly admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where she would spend the rest of her days in dimly lit wards. Meanwhile, Ethan was sent to prison for intentional assault. Not long after his incarceration, Ethan got into a violent altercation with another inmate, a notoriously dangerous criminal. By the time guards intervened, Ethan had already been beaten to death. James and I chose another sunny day to visit the marriage registry. This time, we obtained our marriage certificates without any complications. Stepping out of the civil affairs office holding our red booklets, the warm sunlight enveloped us. I smiled at him and said, "Mr. Carter, I look forward to our journey together." James' lips curved slightly as he replied, "Mrs. Carter, the pleasure is mine. This lifetime, we'll walk hand in hand with unwavering determination."